Is she lost? Colonel Bradshaw frowns. A woman in jeans holds a rental rifle like it's a mop. The brass laugh. Civilians, someone scoffs. Then, her stance shifts. Breathing sharpens. Movements tighten. Bradshaw leans in. Zoom on that scope. Through the lens. No fear, only precision. Crack, 3 targets, 1 shot. Silence, a recruit gasps. Sir! She's not one of ours. Bradshaw's face hardens. Activate Ghost Recon. Private Davis, fresh from sniper school at 19, notices the transformation first. His training kicks in as he observes her pulse visibly slow through the carotid artery in her neck, 40 beats per minute, impossibly steady for someone under public scrutiny. That breathing pattern triggers something in his memory, something from classified training videos he'd studied just weeks ago. His face drains of color as recognition dawns. Sir, Davis whispers to his sergeant, his voice barely audible over the desert wind. That's Ghost Recon. The words hang in the air like a loaded weapon, unheard by Bradshaw but spreading through the younger soldiers like wildfire. What would you do if someone mocked your skills without knowing who you really are? Drop your location below. Margaret Whitehorse appears unremarkable to the casual observer, a middle-aged woman with tortoiseshell hair streaked with premature gray, tied back in a simple ponytail that speaks of practicality over style. Her pale skin, unusual for her Native American heritage, comes from her Irish grandmother, a detail she rarely shares with the few people who dare ask personal questions. The 15-year-old pickup truck she drove to the range bears the scars of honest use, its faded paint and minor dents telling stories of a life lived without pretense. She works part-time at Henderson's Hardware on the outskirts of Colorado Springs, known among local veterans for never charging full price when they need materials for home repairs. Her modest trailer home sits on 5 acres of scrubland, far enough from town that the coyotes sing her to sleep each night. Today's visit to the range wasn't planned. She'd inherited her father's old hunting rifle after his recent passing and simply wanted to test its accuracy before deciding whether to keep or sell it. The rifle feels familiar in her hands, though she tells herself it's just muscle memory from hunting trips with her father decades ago. As she adjusts her grip, a tremor runs through her fingers, not from inexperience, but from memories threatening to surface. 10 years of being nobody, 10 years of peace, and holding this weapon feels like coming home to a place she'd sworn never to return. Her internal monologue battles against the sensation. You're just Maggie now. That's all. The hardware store employee who helps fix leaky faucets and stocks shelves. But her body remembers what her mind tries to forget. The way her breathing automatically adjusts for optimal oxygen flow. How her feet position themselves for maximum stability without conscious thought, the instinctive calculation of wind speed based on the movement of dust particles. All betraying a past she's buried deeper than any grave. Colonel James Bradshaw stands as the epitome of military ambition, his uniform immaculate despite the desert heat, silver temples adding distinguished authority to his 45 years. His recent promotion came through aggressive lobbying and political maneuvering rather than field excellence, a fact he compensates for with excessive displays of authority. Today's demonstration for the Pentagon Evaluation Committee represents the culmination of 2 years' work on his controversial modernization program, a complete overhaul of traditional marksmanship training in favor of automated targeting systems and digital aids. The proposal has backing from Senator Patricia Holbrook, whose campaign contributions from defense technology contractors align perfectly with Bradshaw's vision. Failure here means more than a setback. It means career death in the political minefield of military advancement. His eyes scan the range and land on Maggie like a predator identifying prey. Perfect, he thinks, a civilian woman with a rifle. Exactly the contrast I need. The pistol range might be more appropriate for civilian practice, Bradshaw mentions to his audience, ensuring his voice carries. One Pentagon official nods while another observes, interesting vehicle choice for a range visit. Bradshaw maintains his professional demeanor as he approaches Maggie. Ma'am, I'll have Corporal Jensen provide a safety briefing. We maintain strict standards here. His tone suggests reasonable concern, but his eyes anticipate a teaching moment. Maggie's response comes quiet but steady. I know my way around a rifle, Colonel. The simplicity of her statement prompts Bradshaw's rehearsed response. I'm sure you've had some experience. However, military-grade marksmanship is quite different from civilian shooting sports. The Pentagon officials watch with interest, one discreetly checking his phone while following the exchange. The dismissive attitude stings, but Maggie's jaw tightens imperceptibly as she maintains her composure. The old version of herself would have calmly corrected his assumptions with devastating precision, but she's not that person anymore. That person died in a helicopter crash 10 years ago, at least according to official records. Margaret Whitehorse, the humble hardware store employee, simply nods and turns her attention back to the rifle. When she quietly requests the 800-yard target, the range officer hesitates, glancing between her and his superior. Bradshaw's eyebrows raise as he interjects. "That's quite ambitious. Perhaps we should start with something more achievable. Gentlemen, this illustrates why we need modernization. Unrealistic civilian expectations about marksmanship. The scorching 95-degree heat creates shimmering mirages above the range as military personnel pause their 300-yard practice to witness what promises to be a lesson in humility. Bradshaw addresses his unit with measured authority. Observe the differences between trained and untrained shooting, he instructs, positioning himself strategically. Document this for training purposes. Common civilian errors. He indicates Maggie's stance clinically. Note the positioning. No military framework, relying on instinct rather than training. His observations sound professional but carry undertones of superiority. At this distance, even trained marksmen face challenges, he adds, establishing expectations for failure. Have you ever witnessed someone completely underestimate the wrong person? Share your story. The young soldiers begin gathering, some curious about the demonstration, others uncomfortable with their colonel's public lesson at a civilian's expense. Maggie loads 5 rounds with an efficiency that should have been the first warning sign. No fumbling, no hesitation, each motion flowing into the next like water following a familiar path. Bradshaw maintains his commentary. Notice the deliberate movements, likely compensating for inexperience. The rifle rises to her shoulder in a motion so smooth it seems choreographed, but not in the way Bradshaw implies. This is muscle memory carved from thousands of repetitions, each one potentially meaning life or death for someone hundreds of yards away. The first shot cracks through the desert air like thunder, and 800 yards away the target shivers with impact. Dead center. Bradshaw's commentary pauses before recovering. Interesting. First shot luck isn't uncommon. But something has shifted in the atmosphere around the range. The second shot follows with mechanical precision, the sound arriving at their position a heartbeat after the visible impact. Through the spotting scope, the range officer's eyes widen. The second bullet has split the first, creating a perfect figure-8 hole in the target. Uncomfortable silence begins spreading through the gathered crowd like ripples on still water. The third shot maintains the impossible pattern, and young soldiers start exchanging meaningful glances. Some step back instinctively, recognizing excellence even if they can't name its source. Each perfect shot awakens something dormant within Maggie, like a sleeping giant stirring after years of forced hibernation. A memory crashes through her defenses. Kandahar Province, 2012. Ghost 3's voice crackling through the radio. "Thunder, we've got 30-plus hostiles converging on the school, kids still inside. Her position on the ridge, 1,200 yards from the building where Taliban fighters gathered, the weight of 23 young lives in her scope. Ghost 3, Thunder has the angle, going hot. The first shot through a window the size of a playing card, taking the leader before he could give the order. 14 more shots in 90 seconds, each finding its mark through windows, doorways, gaps in walls. The enemy scattered, the school evacuated, 23 children running to safety while she provided invisible protection from over 3/4 of a mile away. She blinks, returning to the present. But the rifle remembers, even if she tries to forget. Private Davis's hands tremble as he watches through his binoculars, his recent training allowing him to recognize what others miss. The modified breathing pattern, inhale for 4 counts, hold for 7, exhale for 8, is textbook Ghost Recon technique, classified information he'd studied just last month. He notices her unconscious micro-judgments for wind compensation, done without checking the range flags that flutter uselessly in the desert breeze. Her trigger discipline speaks of special operations training, the way her finger rests alongside the guard until the millisecond before firing, the positioning, the breathing, the supernatural stillness between shots. It all matches the grainy training videos about the legendary all-female sniper unit that officially never existed. His mind races through remembered briefings about Ghost Recon's impossible shots, their perfect record, their leader who'd vanished in a helicopter crash 10 years ago. Master Sergeant Thornstop, a 20-year veteran with 3 tours in Afghanistan, studies Maggie's form with growing recognition. He's seen that particular stance only once before, in classified footage from Operation Mountain Shadow, where a single sniper had held off an entire Taliban assault for 6 hours, allowing a trapped Marine battalion to evacuate. The Pentagon officials have stopped taking notes, their phones now recording for entirely different reasons. One of them, General Morrison's aide, pulls up something on his tablet, his face paling as he compares the woman before them to a partially redacted photograph. Whispers begin circulating through the crowd. That's not civilian marksmanship. Who is she? Bradshaw, sensing the shift but too invested in his narrative to retreat, maintains his professional tone. While impressive, this type of precision shooting has limited practical application, which my modernization program addresses. Maggie fires her 4th and 5th shots in rapid succession, the rifle dancing in her hands like a conductor's baton, directing a symphony of precision. Through the spotting scopes, observers watch in stunned silence as the bullet holes form a perfect 5-point star, not just grouped tightly, but geometrically precise. A feat that would challenge Olympic shooters under ideal conditions, let alone in desert wind at 800 yards. Davis can no longer contain himself. He pulls out his phone with shaking fingers, accessing a database that requires his military credentials. The search takes seconds but feels like hours. Margaret Whitehorse, Captain, Ghost Recon Unit. The archived photo shows a younger woman, her face partially obscured by tactical gear, but the eyes, those pale gray eyes that seem to see through time and distance, are unmistakable. Holy shit, that's her, Master Sergeant Thompson breathes when Davis shows him the screen. The revelation spreads through the military personnel like wildfire, each whisper adding another layer to the legend. Ghost Recon, the elite all-female sniper unit that operated in classified territories from 2001 to 2015. Their record reads like fiction. 2,847 confirmed enemy combatants neutralized with 0 civilian casualties. The unit's commander, call sign Silent Thunder, had become mythical even among special operations forces. The woman, now calmly setting down her rifle, had once shot through a hostage-taker's trigger finger from 1,100 yards to save an ambassador's life. She'd held a position for 72 hours without relief during Operation Broken Arrow. She'd developed the breathing techniques now taught in every American sniper school. Yet Bradshaw remains unaware of the shifting tide, his professionalism masking growing uncertainty. Impressive grouping, he concedes, before adding, though consistency at multiple ranges presents different challenges. Perhaps a demonstration of rapid target acquisition? His suggestion comes across as reasonable, though the Pentagon officials behind him are now frantically trying to get his attention. One senior official, who'd been briefed on Ghost Recon operations during his time at the Defense Intelligence Agency, recognizes not just the shooting, but the quiet dignity with which she bears the subtle dismissal. This is the woman who'd saved Delta Team in Fallujah, who'd provided overwatch for countless operations that came home successful because of her invisible protection. Variable distance rapid engagement demonstrates the superiority of electronic targeting assistance, Bradshaw continues, playing to an audience that's no longer fully listening. Soldiers are beginning to stand straighter, veterans removing their caps in a gesture of respect that transcends rank or current status. Someone whispers, "My brother's alive because of her." Operation Sandstorm, 2011. Another adds, "She covered our extract in Kandahar. Never saw her, but command said Ghost Recon had our 6. The growing chorus of recognition creates an honor guard of whispered testimonies, each one adding weight to the moment. Maggie accepts Bradshaw's challenge with a simple nod, her first real acknowledgement of his suggestions. When she speaks, her voice carries quiet certainty. 7 targets, 30 seconds, standard Ghost protocol. The range officers scramble to set up the requested configuration while Bradshaw processes her words. Ghost protocol, he asks, the first crack in his professional facade. Maggie loads her rifle with the same mechanical precision she's displayed throughout, each motion economical and purposeful. The crowd has grown now, words spreading across the base about something extraordinary happening at the range. Young female recruits push to the front, drawn by something they can't quite name but desperately want to witness. The desert wind dies down as if nature itself has paused to observe. Electronic targeting systems activate, their red lights blinking at varying distances like a deadly constellation spread across the range. Maggie stands perfectly still, rifle at rest, waiting for the timer's signal. The electronic timer pierces the desert silence with its sharp beep, and Maggie moves like lightning given form. The first shot explodes from her rifle, thunder, crack, splitting air, and 300 yards away the target shudders with a perfect center mass hit. Without pause, her body pivots with fluid grace, the spent brass casing spiraling through sunlight like a golden butterfly. The second shot follows before the echo of the first fades, 400 yards conquered in the space between heartbeats. Those watching through scopes see what their naked eyes cannot. Each bullet finds not just the target, but the exact center, as if drawn by invisible threads of intention. The rifle dances in her hands, no wasted motion, no hesitation, just pure kinetic poetry written in copper and lead. The rifle speaks, and distant steel answers. Fourth shot, 600 yards. Maggie's breathing never changes, her pulse steady as a metronome counting out destruction. Fifth shot, 700 yards, wind gusts suddenly. But she's already compensated, the adjustment so minor most observers miss it entirely. Sixth shot, 800 yards. The furthest target staggers under impact while Maggie's already swinging to the final position. The crowd watches in breathless silence as she pauses for a fraction of a second, reading wind patterns and dust motes invisible to untrained eyes. The final shot at 900 yards presents a special challenge. The range officers have added a swinging chain in front of the target, an obstacle that would frustrate most shooters. Maggie exhales completely, that space between heartbeats where time stretches like taffy, and squeezes the trigger with the gentleness of a mother's touch. The bullet threads through the swinging chain with a metallic clink before obliterating the target behind it. 23.7 seconds shows on the timer as Maggie sets down the rifle, its barrel still smoking in the desert heat. She doesn't check the targets. The sound tells her everything she needs to know. 7 shots, 7 kills, performed with the casual efficiency of someone completing a mundane chore. The deafening silence that follows speaks louder than any applause could. Dust settles on the range while distant target fragments continue their earthward tumble, the only sound in a world that's momentarily forgotten how to breathe. Maggie turns to leave, her job complete, but the weight of recognition holds her in place, like invisible chains made from a past she can't quite escape. A Pentagon official's laptop screen glows with classified information pulled from archives that require the highest security clearance. Captain Margaret Whitehorse, Medal of Honor classified, the file header reads, followed by statistics that seem impossible for a single human being. 317 successful missions with 0 civilian casualties, a record that stands unmatched in modern military history. The photograph shows a younger Maggie standing next to a president whose face is partially redacted, her own features obscured by shadow but unmistakable to anyone who's seen her shoot. The file's final entry sends chills through those reading. Status, presumed KIA. Down poor luck, no body recovered. General Morrison, head of the Pentagon Evaluation Committee, steps forward. Colonel Bradshaw, his voice cuts through the stunned silence, are you familiar with the Ghost Recon program? Bradshaw's face shows confusion, mixed with growing concern. The classified sniper unit, sir? I've heard rumors. Morrison's expression hardens. Not rumors, Colonel. You've just witnessed Captain Margaret Whitehorse, the most decorated sniper in American military history. The blood drains from Bradshaw's face as understanding dawns. Morrison's phone rings. Senator Holbrook. He answers on speaker. Yes, Senator. The demonstration has concluded. I'd say your modernization program just proved obsolete. No, Senator, there's no recovering from this. The entire range snaps to attention in a spontaneous display of respect that transcends regulations about saluting civilians. Young female recruits stand with tears streaming down their faces, witnessing proof that legends can be real. Veterans who served in the areas where Ghost Recon operated step forward with reverence. Staff Sergeant Williams, you saved my unit in Helmand Province, ma'am. Corporal Martinez, my sister came home because of you. Who's the most humble hero you've ever met? Tag someone who deserves recognition. Maggie finally speaks, addressing the young female recruits. The best shooter isn't who talks loudest. Excellence needs no announcement. To Bradshaw, your technology can't replace human judgment. Remember that. She turns to leave, but General Morrison intercepts. Captain Whitehorse, we can restore your rank, your benefits. Maggie cuts him off gently. I have what I need, General. She walks through the corridor of saluting soldiers without military bearing. just a civilian whose past casts long shadows. Bradshaw's phone buzzes. Subject: immediate reassignment, Fort Polk, Louisiana, supply management. His career, built on politics rather than merit, crumbles in real time. The modernization program dies with a whimper, killed by 23.7 seconds of human excellence. 3 months later, Maggie helps a young female veteran at the hardware store, ringing up materials for a wheelchair ramp at mysteriously discounted prices. She loads the truck, follows the veteran home, and builds the ramp with the same precision she once applied to saving lives from 1,000 yards away. 6 months after that, a Gold Star mother brings her son's final letter. He'd written about Captain Whitehorse before his last mission. They embrace over his words about courage and duty, 2 women bound by sacrifice and service. 1 year later, the Fort Carson Range hosts free self-defense classes. Maggie teaches a diverse group of women, her instruction patient and precise. When someone asks if she was really Ghost Recon, she smiles. "I was a soldier who did her duty. Now I'm a teacher. That's my greatest mission." The morning sun catches the American flag as another student finds her strength, guided by hands that once changed history, one trigger pull at a time. Service takes many forms, and sometimes the greatest warriors are those who choose when not to fight. The mission continues, just differently than before.